and gathering more information and data off of a Windows system. Exploitation Basics by TryHackMe. This room's to help with after you compromise a Windows system. Helps talk about ManyCats, Bloodhound, PowerView, and gathering more information and data off of a Windows system to basically leverage those credentials further in the domain. So this is a more realistic type room. It is a walkthrough room. And let's get started. Let's look at it on TryHackMe. So this room here has multiple tasks, and we're going to go through each one of these tasks. And I'm going to kind of explain some of the tasks, what we're doing exactly, and then how realistic it is for doing these type of things in an actual internal assessment. So first off, this is a free room, so you can join TryHackMe and spin up this room. And I went ahead and already started this room. So we want to do some scanning and understand what this system has available to kind of identify it. And so we'll copy our IP address and put it into a targets file. So with that done, we now have the ability to specify that in nmap. So we're going to do nmap-il. That's input list, and it's going to read the IP addresses out of that targets file. Then we're going to do a -pn for no ping, and T5 is for the fastest rate that nmap can send information for the ports. And then output all formats, and we're going to call this post. And so we get quickly back some port numbers here. We see a variety of ports. We see SSH, we see domain or DNS on port 53, Kerberos, some Microsoft ports here. The 135 and 139 are definitely associated with Microsoft, as well as 445 and 3389. Some of the additional ports that you may have not seen before are indicative of a domain controller. So 88 is Kerberos. We also see LDAP is exposed on the server. So we have all the different LDAP ports via SSL or global catalog, LDAP catalog. So this is a pretty open box here. One of the ports that might throw off people who've worked on Windows systems before is this SSH port. And on newer versions of Windows, SSH is now open via using an open SSH server on Windows 10 and Windows 2019. So you can have an SSH server running on Windows or have the ability to use SSH directly out of your Windows 10 host or 2019 server. And we'll be using that some today. So the first task is just an introduction, just talking about what we're going to end up doing with ManyCats and things like that. The second task is where everything gets started. And we're going to assume a compromised position. And what that means is that we're starting off this room as if you already got an exploit working on it, or if you got credentials via some method, or you passed a hash and now you have a reverse shell. So you already have access to this machine, and the way that they're providing this is just a username password. And so again, we have two methods of accessing this. I'm going to kind of show off this SSH method. So we're going to SSH as an administrator. We'll go ahead and type in the password. And what you'll notice is that we're kind of like at a normal Windows command prompt, and so this is put us into a command prompt for Windows. This is a normal CMD prompt, we have dir and things like that. So just as if you normally would type CMD on your Windows system. So now that we're on the system, what we want to do is load up PowerShell. The first this task here is demonstrating the power of PowerView. It's a set of PowerShell scripts that help pull information from the Windows host and kind of display it in a format that's more easily to digest and use. And so it wants us to go ahead and execute PowerShell in a bypass mode. So PowerShell has multiple execution policies that can be ran on the system. And the standard policy for most systems is not to execute scripts or allow importation of outside scripts that are not signed, things like that. And so by executing PowerShell with this effective policy, that's what the -EP for, in bypass mode, means that we're now allowing that ability to happen. You would need to be an administrator or administrative level to just change policies like that. So the next portion is that we're going to import the functionality of PowerView into our session currently. And so that's what the dot and then the dot space dot slash the script is doing. We're importing all that functionality of the script into our current session. And now we have the ability to query these sessions or use the functions of that script there. So in this case here, it's showing us to get net user. And so if we just run that command without the other half of that, we see that here's a list of all the users and properties of those users. Each user has a set of properties, and the same properties for each user basically, but the data is different. So we can see stuff like login count, bad password time, some descriptions, distinguished names, object class, display name, things like that of this one user. And so what they're wanting us to do is just look at just the CN and filter on that. So we're going to do a select CN, and select is similar to grep for PowerShell. And so we're selecting that CN property, and we're displaying all the CN there. So this is similar to if we were to do net user. Net user, again, net is a built-in function of Windows, and it has accounts, computer, config, file, group, things like that. And so when you specify net user, it's just listing the users on that system that are available. But you will notice that there are some differences here. Things like this post user does not have any of those characters inside the curly brackets there. And so, PowerShell and this PowerView script can help pull out maybe additional data that you need. So the next function that we'll do is get net group. And again, this is going to list all the groups on this server, and we can see there's quite a bit of them. So it wants us to go ahead and filter just down to a group name. And we're doing a dash group name, and we're going to do star admin star. And so this is going to be any group name that has administrator anywhere within the name of it. And so we see a smaller list here. What's kind of cool about this room is it gives you a link to a cheat sheet. This cheat sheet has additional commands that would help you kind of further enumerate what's going on the system, what of it, groups and things like that are there. You can filter based on names and LDAP filters and such. So a lot more information to pull out. So for the task of this room, we had 3 questions that we needed to answer. The first one was the hidden flag. The one that should easily stand out, the answer that should easily stand out, was number 3. What's the hidden flag inside the users if you found it? So when we ran the net user command and selected CN, we can see that pop out easily. But the other 2, we didn't run any commands that kind of give us this information, and this is where you kind of need to dig more into PowerView and the functionality of it. And so to get that, we need to look up how do you know run different functions of PowerView, and PowerView is hosted on a GitHub repo, and so we're going to pull that up, and if you click on Recon, that's going to bring you back out. This is going to be having a README file, and the README file here has a list of all the functions within PowerView that we're looking for. And so these are all different types of functions inside that PowerView script that we loaded earlier. And for the task that we're looking for, the first one here is shared folders that is not set by default. And so if we go back to the functionality of PowerView, we can see here that they have a function called invoke share finder, and that finds non-standard shares on host in the local domain, and that's throughout the whole domain. And so if you're an authenticated user anywhere in that domain, you could basically find all the open shares that are available, and this can be very very powerful when you do this. You could put malicious LNK files or link files on those shares, and if a user happens to um, stumble across those shares, you could have that send back the credentials um, to you. So yeah, we do see a share folder there. And so that's the name of the share that we were looking for. And then for the next one, we need to determine what operating system is running inside the network besides Windows 2019. So if we go back to Powersploit, we can see that we can list all the current servers in the domain by using get net computer. So when we do this, it just kind of displays, you know, three little systems here, but that doesn't give us any details. And if we want to see any more of the detail, what we need to do is specify full data. And if we do that, now we see each of the properties for each one of those systems that we were looking at. And we can see stuff like logon counts, um, the object SID, again a CN, there's the name of the computer, and what we're kind of more wanting to focus on is this operating system. So just like before, we can do that select command and only just print out that operating system. And that's where we get all the different types of operating systems within the domain. All right. So the next task now is moving on to Bloodhound. Bloodhound is a way to pull out users and groups and all that information out of the system and correlate it into a graph type format. And so we're going to go ahead and run Bloodhound on the system, and then we'll need to pull that data off. So we're still in our PowerShell functionality here, and we'll go ahead and import the functions of Bloodhound. And then we're going to go ahead and invoke that. And we're going to do that with the collection method. All domain controller. And then we're going to specify it to have a zip file name. So it's going to run some queries in the background. Again, this is very noisy. If they've set up any monitoring, this would get caught. But for our domain, it's very quick. There's not a lot of users, there's not a lot of computers, things like that. On a bigger domain, this would take a longer amount of time. So this is done. This is located in our directory there. And now we need to get this file off of here. So this is where we're going to do a little bit of work. So we're going to mount, and then we're going to do a CIFS system, and that's like a common internet file system. We're going to do username equals administrator, and then we're going to specify this IP address, and we're going to mount to a share that we have access to. So there's administrator share of $C$, and I've already created a folder called share in this directory. And when we do this, it's going to ask us for the password. And we mounted it. So everything now in that $C$ is mounted to that share directory. So if we ls that share directory, we see now we're on the Windows system. And so now we can pull anything off of that Windows system and just copy it onto our local system. And so for us, we're going to do, we need to get to that C users administrator. So we see users, administrator, and if we ls, we see the files in here, and we just need to copy that 2020 bin. And we're going to copy that. Let's just specify the directory. Okay. So now we have successfully copied that onto our system. And we now can use that information. So we want to get back out of the share here, and then we'll want to unmount that share. Okay, umount, sorry. All right, so now if we look, we have the loot.zip there, and that's what we're looking for. Now to use this information, we have to start up Bloodhound, and Bloodhound's a two-part program. You need to install it onto your Kali system. It doesn't come on there by default. But once you install it, then you need to start Neo4j, and then start Bloodhound. And so we'll spin up. We'll go ahead and split this window up here. We'll start the Neo4j server. When you first start Neo4j, you'll need to kind of change the password on there. And you'll change that password in this URL that it gives after it's finished starting up here. So this URL here, this localhost 7474, you can put that into your browser, and it'll load up a little Neo4j console. And so we see the Neo4j browser here, and again, there's not much to look at for this, but you'll need to do this the first time to change the username and password. And just make sure you remember whatever password that you set for this. So with this started, then we can go ahead and start Bloodhound. And with Bloodhound, there's no data in there currently, and so what we want to do is upload that data by importing graph. So we should be able to do the zip. Sometimes that works. If not, then you just need to unzip it and then go from there. So we'll try the zip first and then move on. There's our zip from earlier. So it says it's a bad JSON file, so let's just unzip it. So I'm going to make a directory. There's quite a bit of files in this, and so you'll want to kind of put it in its own little area so that you don't have all these files just going everywhere. So now we have created our own directory. We'll unzip it. And you can see that we just got a couple of JSON files here. So now we'll import those. Again, we'll need to go to the same directory that we were at before. And I'm holding down control, well, so we're just gonna import. It should take it. Hmm. Usually it lets you import multiple files. Maybe I'm not doing something correctly. It just keeps saying bad JSON file. Let's see here. Oh, upload data. Sorry. I was clicking the wrong button. All right, let's try the zip again, and then if not, we'll try the, there we go. So it's pulling the JSON files out of that zip there. And then it says it's finished processing these files. And so for the room, it's kind of wanting us to, it wants to show you that Bloodhound has these queries built in. And so on the left-hand side here, we have a menu bar. And if we click that, and we click on queries, these are pre-built queries. And what it's doing is these are saved basically in the graph language to map out things and show it visually to you. So you can like click find all domains, and we see them here. And so if I zoom out a little bit, we see this. Now, the thing with Bloodhound is at first you're kind of saying, okay, great, I don't see how I visualize this data. But if you go over to the settings and have it do edge and then always display and node always display, what it's now going to show you is all the accounts and things like that to kind of give you more of that insight. And so what we're seeing visually here is there's 3 accounts that are part of the domain admins. And if we look at these additional queries, you can find shortest path to domain admins. And so this kind of maps this out. So we're trying to get this to display this again. All right. So what we're looking at here is when you click on it, you can see that we have the details about that object, and it kind of gives you the more information about what's going on. So these are GP links to the controller.local, which contains SQL Service Controller, which is a member of the domain admins, and that's the target. And then we can also see that there's other people that have access to the domain admin and how they have access. So administrators has a write DACL access to domain administrators. And then down here, we see that just these people are just administrators. They're members of the domain admin. And so what this is trying to show you is that if you compromise like admin 2, it's already a member of domain admins. In a bigger network, what you'll end up seeing is, certain computers have access as an administrator, and if you can compromise that computer, that's a user of the domain admins is logged into that computer also. In this case here, because it's not as big, it's not going to have that. So there's unconstrained delegation systems. This kind of shows a little bit more maybe. So let's see what the room wants us to find out exactly. So yeah, just asking you, oh, here's a good one. So we have domain admins, find all domain admins. That was one that we wanted to see. And we can see here's 3 domain admins, and in this case that the top one was the one that the question was asking for, and then Kerber Roastable. Kerber Roastable was covered in another room, and here we go, shortest path from Kerber Roastable users. And so we'll go for the KRG TBT, which pulled up nothing, but let's do the SQL Server then. So we can see here that the SQL Server service is a member of Enterprise Admins, which then has generic all to Desktop 1 controller, and then same thing down here. It has access to Domain Admins, which then has generic all to Domain Controller and Desktop 2 controller. So it's a good way to kind of visually see, again, how you can follow a path to get to some target. And the reason for this is in some scenarios, you're not just looking to get KRBTGT, you're looking to get access to a certain box because that administrator manages something that is high value. And so knowing and understanding how to do this helps out. You have another roadmap here too. You can say this little direction thing. You can say computer one or desktop. Was it desktop one? Yeah, desktop one. And then you want your destination to be desktop two. And so in this case, there's no path to that. So we can see if desktop one has anything. Doesn't look like it. So it's something to play around with. It's good to kind of visualize this and see um, the different ways and different paths you can find within your network. All right. So that covers Bloodhound. There wasn't much there. Again, it's kind of hard to show that in a flat domain like this. So let's close Bloodhound. All right, clean that up real quick. All right, and now we're moving on to ManyCats. ManyCats is one of my favorite tools to use. Um, this one here usually gets loaded in via, like Metasploit or some kind of other C2 once you get access to it. Um, and you just load it into memory. ManyCats is usually detected by antivirus and stuff like that. And the reasoning for it is because it can um, display credentials or hashes. So for this case here, it's of course been the antivirus has been disabled and kind of they put it on the box to show you how to do this. So we're going to do downloads, um, and we'll see in downloads that there is ManyCats. So I'm just going to make that window bigger, and we'll go through this. And if you've seen any of the other streams, you've seen Kiwi, me load Kiwi or ManyCats in through Meterpreter most of the time, and do these similar type things to gain access to those credentials. So for ManyCats, you just run the executable. It has its own little command prompt. And then what we want to do is request the privilege of debug. Debug allows us to read memory and that includes memory of other processes. And in this case, what ManyCats is targeting is the LSAS process and other processes as we're dumping through those. So the first thing that we are going to do is that LSAS process, the LSAS dump. And so it parses through memory and it grabs any of the information that it can containing the RID, the username, the LM hash, and the NTLM hash. And so we can see here, the administrator hash, the KRB TGT hash, which is very big if you get that. Machine 1, admin 2, so far and so forth. So for us, it wants us to, it's telling us how, to crack the hash using hash crack. It wants us to do machine 1's password. So we'll go back to this here. What we're looking for is machine 1. And here's the hash for machine 1. So we'll copy this out. We'll go back on our box here, and what we're going to do then is put that hash into a text file. And again, I like to use John when I do cracking. Again, if you have a GPU intensive system, you could do hash crack, but in my case, that's not what I have. So um, now we have the hash on here. What we want to do is have John take the hash, and it's going to use a word list. And we need to specify a format. And so we're going to specify format NT. Um, so John's going to run through the word list. It's going to try each possible word list. It's going to do the operation of NT on it to do the the salting and the hashing and stuff, and then see if that result matches with whatever it got, and then that's how it determines the password. So in this case, it figured out that it's password 1. For the next question, we see what is machine two's hash, and again, this is something that's easily pulled out of ManyCats there. And so we easily accomplish those 2 tasks based on this information here. All right, so the next big thing is doing the golden ticket task. So the golden ticket, what it does is it will basically have KRBTGT sign like an authentication request, and because it does that, it has access to everything that KRBTGT had, which is basically everything. And that's why it's called the golden ticket. It gets you access to everything around in the domain that trusts that account, which is practically everything. So we're still in our ManyCat session up here, and what we're going to now do is we need to dump LSAS, but what we're going to do is inject in there. And what we're injecting is we're looking for the name of KRBTGT. And so this just kind of focuses just on that account instead of everything like we saw before. All right. So some of the things that we need to make note of, and this is what it's pointing out, is the SID. So that's the, whoop. That's the SID of the LSAS account, or KRBTGT, sorry. The user account, which is of course the same thing, and then the NTLM hash, this 55808 number. And we can kind of see this. It should be the same as up here. Yeah, right there. So now we're going to create a golden ticket. And when you create a golden ticket, you're forging one, and you can forge it as a current user of the domain, or you can forge it as something not of the domain. So just to kind of give you an idea, let's exit. I'm going to show again net user. Okay, so there's the users on the account. We're going to load back up ManyCats again. I'm going to invoke the privilege of debug. And actually, this one, let me do this one on the system because this will make a lot more sense. So let's get access to this. So we're going to use xfree RDP, user administrator password, and then going to be the IP address. And this will make sense here in a minute. What I want to do is I want to forge a ticket, but I want to use that ticket to do things. And if I'm on an actual terminal window instead of what I'm on now, then you can see that easier. All right, so we're going back to the downloads directory. Now we can run ManyCats. We'll run that privilege again. Okay, so now we have the privileges. We're going to go ahead and dump the information that we got before, just so it's in the terminal window. And now we're going to inject a ticket. All right. So we're invoking the Kerberos module. This is going to use Kerberos to do this. It's going to do golden. For the user, we're going to specify my name. Like I said, you could do any user on the domain, even ones that are not there. What this is creating is basically an authentication ticket, and so the user doesn't have to be there, which is interesting, of course. So we just copy the SID from up top there. And then we're doing the hash of the KRBGGT. So it's creating this authentication. It's using the KRBTGT's hash to basically sign this. And then we're specifying the next command will be specifying the effective RID or permissions, and that'll be with /ID 500, which is basically administrator. All right, so now that ticket's saved. It's been generated, and with that, now we can open up, have basically ManyCats open up a command prompt, and this is why I needed to be in here. And so we can see this is an administrative level command prompt. So it sees it almost as like administrator at this time. And so then you can start accessing other systems throughout the network. In this case here, it's kind of trying to show that you would try to access these other desktops that you saw, but what is going to happen is that they're not connected. So there's no way for it to kind of do that information, to query that up basically. But that's how you would do it, and then you would also be able to do, use your sysinternal tools like psexec and run a command shell on that system. All right, server manager. So with having access to a server, um, there's multitudes of functions that this is running. And when you log into a server, the first thing that starts up is server manager. And if you've never seen a Windows server, what's on the left-hand side is all the installed services that are active on the server, and then in this main part here, it's showing you the roles and kind of like a status of what everything's going on basically. So we can see that these two are red, and they have something going on with the services. So if we looked at it, we can see that it was stopped. The download maps manager was stopped. So this is, again, just kind of a visual dashboard for an administrator to kind of see this. But part of this too is all the tools involved in this. And when you click on tools, again, it's a lot. And this can end up changing based on what services you install or don't have installed. As part of a Active Directory domain server, though, you'll get all these Active Directory ones. You'll get a certificate authority set up, a DNS set up. I think that's it. You can specify like Windows Server backup and things like that. So when you're looking in a domain and you're trying to figure out users and computers and things like that, that's usually kind of where you want to go, is that the Active Directory users and computers. And so this is what this is showing us, is how you can specify and look at those users directly. So we can see each one of the users here. If we were, again, look at those groups. This is similar to what we were seeing when we were doing the getNet group and getNet users. These are the groups that we saw when we did getNet users. You'll notice that we see domain admins and users and enterprise admins and things like that. And for the computers, we did get computer and we saw desktop 1 and 2. And then also, of course, the domain server would be another computer. It's just uh, and then there's the domain computer. And then you got managed service accounts. If this is in a domain, same thing, that'd be highly, targeted data. It's something you would draw and try to go after, a managed service account. And then there's your built-in type stuff. All right, so the first question is what tool allows to view event logs. So again, if you go to your tools, the only one with event in there is Event Viewer. And this is where all those events would go for Windows. You can look at your Windows logs based on application security setup or system. Majority of the time, you're looking at application or security when you're looking at logs and stuff like that. And you can see all the different logs here. And then the second thing that it's asking us about is what's the SQL Server password, and that's just because someone had basically put that into a comment in um, their description here. And so this does happen sometimes in real world internal assessments. Someone might put something in a description. That's the user's password. So it's something good to kind of query that and look for that information. All right, so then the next and final section is the maintain persistence. I'll caveat that I tried this before, and it did not work. We'll give it a shot today to see if this has any differences. So what we need to do is generate a interpreter binary, and then we're going to have it basically call that interpreter binary every time that the service starts up. So we'll do MSFDB. We're gonna, I'm sorry, MSF Venom. Need to generate the executable first. All right, so that's going to generate the binary. Oh, I forgot a dash P. So once it generates the shellcode, it's going to put it into the default template that Metasploit has. Again, that's going to get caught on anything that has antivirus, but in this case, the antivirus is turned off. So now that we have that file there, we need to get the file onto the server. So let's go ahead and host it, get it on there, and then we'll go ahead and start Metasploit up. So we're going to do Python 3-m, and this is a new way to kind of run the Python web server. So we'll close all these open windows that we had. Uh-oh. So it looks like the system shut down. All right. We'll just deploy a new one. So it'll take a couple seconds to get this service running and stuff like that. But once that comes up, we should be able to download the binary and then put it on there. And then what it's going to have us do is run a persistence module. The persistence module is going to copy a VBS script into local temp and then set that as a run key. And so this is where it should basically run out of. And once the system restarts, it'll look at the auto start run key and then execute the VBS script, which then should execute the payload. Just waiting for RDP to come back up. All right, looks like it came back up now. Might be applying some settings. All right, so it's back up now. Again, what we want to do is download our binary onto the system so that we can put it in the auto start. All right, so we're looking to download this. There's our server. Download the exe. We're going to save it. All right, it looks like it was saved on there. Just want to verify that by looking at the downloads folder. So anytime that you download a file, what you want to do is also check the permissions of it. Anything from the internet basically gets a hidden flag that you might not know about. So by clicking properties and then down here where it says this file came from another computer, might be blocked to help protect the computer, just check unblock and click apply, and that's going to basically remove that hidden flag. What happens is if that flag's there, whenever the system tries to run it, it's going to prompt and say, you know, are you sure you want to run this? This is from somewhere else. So another gotcha. All right, so we have our binary on the system. We need to go ahead and catch the shell. So we're going to do an msdb run. All right, and now we're going to use the exploit multi-handler. This is just to catch that shell that we generated here with the exe. And we need to set the payload. It's going to be the same payload that we generated it with. And then we need to set the L host. We'll go ahead and just set this to ton 0, and the L port, which, if I remember right, we did all 4s. We'll go ahead and also set exit on session as false. Again, because this is a persistent module, we don't want it to kill the handler once it gets a session. And so with all that, we'll do an exploit-j, and that should create the listener. So now everything's set up to catch the shell. So if we execute this, we should now get a shell back on, oops, Meterpreter. So we see our session opened up, and now we can interact that with that one. What we want to do is run the persistence modules. So we can use exploit Windows local persistence. So if we show the options, here's what we need to do. We need to specify a payload. So let's do payload. Just use the same payload. Okay, so we're change the payload effectively. We'll set the L host to be ton 0. And nothing should stop us from using the same port because we're not, it says disable payload handler. No handler would be created, so. So we're just basically reusing this payload to kind of be, it's going to install the persistence on there. It's going to call this payload, which is the same payload that we had. We don't need to start a handler because we're already listening on that. And so now all we just need to do is set a session. And then run this. So like I said, again, it installed the run key into the registry. If we were to go and look at the system now, just to kind of give you an idea, we'll do a reg edit. So this is the registry editor on Windows. Let me close this and then bring up this terminal window on the side here so we can kind of see where this was at. All right, so it put it in HKey current user. So again, that's the current user's registry. Then in software, Microsoft. Then in Windows, current version. And then run. And so this is the run key. This is the area, again, where this is going to check every time. Windows is going to check this every time to run these things. And so we can see here the name is in the registry. It's going to go load this VBS script. And once it runs that VBS script, we should get another shell. So everything should be set up now so that if this system gets restarted, we should receive a shell. And so that's what this is all saying here. So let's give this a shot. Like I said, last time that I did this, it did not work correctly, so we'll give it a try. So Meterpreter 1 session died. That's to be expected. Again, the system got rebooted. We'll jump start the RDP again. Again, this is to kind of help simulate that user login. since it's rebooting, it might take a second or two. All right, so it's responding to ping, so we know that we're getting some kind of connection back. All right, RDP is up, but it's not fully configured yet. All right, so now we're logging in. And if everything went right, then it should call that VBS script and then should execute interpreter again. And so, like I said before, this didn't work for me. Oh, there it goes. So we got persistence. So it just took a little bit longer. So there's our persistence back. So again, like you saw though too, I mean that's going to pop up a black box on the computer. Some people might dismiss that, know that their organization installs stuff. I'm sure if you ever been on a corporate computer, you sometimes have a bunch of little black boxes that pop up when you first log on to kind of do things in the background, things like that. So that's the box. A really cool way to kind of learn post exploitation. Again, this is a free room, part of TryHackMe's free rooms that you can look at and do and get used to. I highly suggest that if you do like the rooms, just subscribe. I don't get paid for them or anything like that. I just really like the rooms. I like the way they're set up, and I like the material that they provide and how detailed it is to help learning. So that'll be it for this box.